Welcome, everyone, to our Monday Night Wellness webinar. Tonight we are going to be covering the topic of nutritional deficiencies and how that plays into anxiety, depression, and mood. And we're delighted that you've joined us. We have Master Coordinators Barb Lagoni and Hannah Sherapan, who between the two of them have absolutely decades of experience in helping people deal with health issues through natural approaches with Shaklee supplements. And then Katie Odom and Jennifer Lee, who are currently both building dynamic businesses with Shaklee and are helping tons of people on a daily basis find better health. So we look forward to hearing what everyone has to say.
There we go. Well, let's get started then. Let's begin by talking about anxiety. The medical people call it the general anxiety disorder, and they talk about one of the reasons that we have anxiety, kind of what's going on internally, is that the neurotransmitters, these chemical messengers that we have inside our brains and along our nervous system, they get messed up. Their levels become abnormal. Their messages become garbled and inappropriate, and so it leads to inappropriate responses to things and anxiety. What's interesting is neurotransmitters, like everything else in the body, every cell in the body, are made from vitamins, minerals, and protein. And so we'll keep looping back to show you how nutritional deficiencies tie into these things. Also interesting to note that 60% of neurotransmitters are in the brain, which is where I thought all of them were, until we learned that actually 40% of them are in the gut. And there is a major nerve, the vagus nerve, you've probably heard of that runs from the stomach to the brain, and it is a highway for those neurotransmitters as well. There can be other causes for anxiety, including traumas and stressful things that happen, abuse, death, divorce, changing of jobs and schools. These things, anxiety can be easily aggravated when you start layering on stress factors, and then the use of addictive substances, alcohol, caffeine, nicotine, all of that can aggravate anxiety. And the number of diagnosed people with general anxiety disorder is about 4 million, but according to Dr. Mark Hyman, some of you may be familiar with his book that's called I've got it sitting right here actually, The Ultra Mind Solution. He says that the numbers are much closer to 40 million. And in a moment you'll see why that is so. And then let's talk for a moment just about stress, because most of us really underestimate the terrible toll that stress takes on our body and our mind. It's the body's, of course, chemical reaction when it feels threatened, and we evoke this fight or flight response. But it's what happens when we do that it's preparing us for a fight or for running away, and so our heart races, our breathing quickens, our muscles tighten, and our blood vessels constrict, blood pressure rises, increasing nutritional needs and depleting stress nutrients. And these are all important nutrients also for our immune system. And then we look at antidepressants, and it was quite interesting. I found articles in the New York Times, articles on WebMD, talking about the huge concern about the overprescribing of antidepressants, which begins with the overprescribing and diagnosing of depression, even when there hasn't been adequate time taken to really analyze people. And so in the United States, which is quite different from Europe, people are labeled as having depression or anxiety, and then they are immediately given a medication, faster than trying anything else and never considering nutritional connections. so that we have 1 in every 10 Americans is on an antidepressant. And if you narrow down women in their 40s and 50s, it's 1 in 4. Huge numbers. And according to one of the studies that was done at the Johns Hopkins School of Public Health, they said the vast majority of individuals, as soon as they're diagnosed, rightly or wrongly, and he was making the point, he thinks wrongly, they are immediately given a medication. And most of them stay on the medication, even knowing the kind of side effects that it has, at least 2 years, some for a decade or more. By contrast, the Dutch College of General Practitioners, this is also true in Germany, we'll tell you about when we get to the Mood Lift product, last year urged its members to prescribe antidepressants only in case of severe situations, and instead to offer psychological treatment, other support for daily life. Officials noted that depressive symptoms may be a normal reaction when somebody has had a loss or something, traumatic happened to them that can't always be treated by a medication, that these are life experiences that people need help getting through. Just to give you some statistics from the Ultramind solution, he talks about fixing your broken brain by healing your body first. 20 million with depression, 40 million with anxiety. The last time the National Health and Nutrition assessment was made, this, by the way, is the study that was designed and conducted by Gladys Block. Many of you have heard of Dr. Block from Berkeley, University of California at Berkeley. She is also she's such a renowned researcher and epidemiologist. She's the woman who also conducted the famous landmark study with people who had been taking supplements for a long period of time and only using the Shaklee supplements. That's the same person. Well, they run that study, I think it's every 7 years, so it's probably due to come up in the coming year. And at that time, antidepressants were the number 3 most prescribed medication in the United States. Cholesterol meds were number 1. And one of the reasons that we have this session at this time of year is that seasonal affective disorder is actually quite a real thing. 6% of the population has that to the point of being severe, but it affects 14% of the population. So and we'll tell you a little bit more about that and why that is so. And so in the winter, it turns out that we actually have a hibernation impulse, and it makes us want to eat more. You may have noticed that. I mean, that's why we make, chili and hearty stews and things like that, and we are less energetic. We might have more cravings for carbs and sugar and pastries and alcohol, and we sleep much more, just like the bears. We really are on these circadian rhythms, and it gets dark. Where I live now in the Chicago area, it's dark at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And so we tend to sleep longer because light so affects us. We'll show you something on that in a moment. Afternoon slumps with decreased concentration, depression and mood dispositions, lethargy and sluggish. This is a very common thing, so be aware of it. And this information, by the way, comes out of the Vitamin D Solution book, and and one of the reasons vitamin D can be very effective for this. And that brings us to our friend Katie Odom. And I work very closely with Katie. Many of you are on our Thursday morning training programs. And Katie shared that anxiety was an issue that she had to deal with growing up ever since middle school. Katie, you want to share your story with us?
Yeah, just feeling a little anxious. No, I'm just kidding. I think that a lot of this can be very genetic, and I also believe, though, that it can be environmental and what we put into our bodies. There's just so many different reasons why we have this, and I was telling Barb earlier that I only wish that I had Shaklee to help me, because as a middle schooler, is when my anxiety really began to peak. I can remember going to school and feeling really anxious, and I can remember not wanting to ever spend the night anywhere but at my own house, and I would often have trouble sleeping. I would not be able to fall asleep, which would make me anxious, not being able to fall asleep.
Mm-hmm.
And I would often get such an upset stomach. I can remember every morning at school having to take a Tums because my stomach was just constantly upset. And I also, with generalized anxiety, you just have this general feeling of like there's butterflies in your stomach, but a lot of times you can't pinpoint why. So I can just remember feeling anxious, but I had no reason why. I couldn't pinpoint it to something. And also I had some really bad OCD symptoms. So if you're familiar with OCD, it's obsessive compulsive disorder. And I would just compulsively check things. And it was very bad and very hard to break. And I can remember not wanting to do that. I would have to make sure that the light switches were off and just silly little things like that. And at the time, too, I also, with hormones coming in, had a lot of imbalance with that and just struggled with that. So as I went through high school, I was pretty similar to middle school. It maybe got a little bit better. But then college hit, and things were just really hard, especially being away from home. So I actually saw a counselor, and they put me on an antidepressant. However, the antidepressant I felt like made me emotionless. I can remember just not feeling any emotion. I wasn't necessarily anxious. I wasn't sad. I just didn't feel anything. And not only that, but it came with a lot of really bad side effects. I gained weight and again, just felt disconnected. That would be a really good word, too, amongst many other bad side effects. Thankfully, it was only for a short period of time. But when I went off of that, then my anxiety was still there. And when I was introduced to Shaklee a few years ago, I've been able to use quite a few products that have helped me. And what is amazing, that is very clear how much of a difference this has made in my life, is when I had my daughter pre-Shaklee, I had very severe anxiety to the point where after she was born, immediately my hormones were off, and I can remember the doctor coming in, and I was just crying, and I was a mess, and I felt so anxious. I was just really, really, really anxious. And so I was really worried about that for when my son was going to be born this past June. And I can remember talking to Dr. Jamie McManus, who's in Shaklee, and she gave me great advice, which was make sure to take a lot of omegas. And so I have been using omegas, which we'll talk about in a little bit, which they have found so many links of inflammation, which makes sense because because of our diet, we all have too much inflammation in our bodies, but there have been a lot of links of increase in inflammation leading to depression and anxiety. So I use that. And also I take extra B, and extra B is just depleted from our bodies so quickly, and it helps a lot with mood and with energy. And I also have increased my vitamin D because we are all so deficient. And then one of my favorites is stress relief. So when I feel that anxiousness coming on, which has decreased tremendously, I am hardly ever anxious anymore, thankfully. But when I do start to feel anxious, I take that stress relief, and within 30 minutes, I start to feel calm and relaxed.
Mm. Oh, yes, exactly. Well, let's hear from one more person, and then we'll talk about each of these products that's helping you both so much, and why they work so well, and a little bit about the Shaklee difference. And that's Jennifer Lee from North Carolina. Jennifer, are you there?
I am. Can you hear me?
Oh, good. Yes, I can hear you now. Right. Would your story is a little different from anxiety. It was probably more in the realm of depression. But tell us a little bit about what happened to you.
Sure. Well, I am approaching 40 years old and have struggled with depression my entire adult life. So I started feeling depressed, I remember, right after heading off to college and moving away from home, and struggled with it for years. And it really became significantly worse after I had my first child and I experienced postpartum depression. And at that point, I sought help and treatment and was placed on antidepressant and was often on several antidepressants over the years. And then about 2 years ago, I started using the Shaklee products. I was introduced by a friend of mine and really just noticed a difference very, very quickly in the way that I felt, my energy level, the things that depression is typically linked to, like the low energy and not finding joy and excitement in the things that normally you would. And I think I found within probably the first few months, I was starting to regain these feelings that I had been missing for so long of just joy and peace and excitement and then about 5 months into taking the Shaklee products, I decided that I would just stop taking everything. I was on, at that point, about 5 different medications. 3 of them were different antidepressants. I mean, they really had me on a cocktail of medications, and I just believed, well, whatever the doctor says, that's just what I need to do, and I don't dismiss a doctor's suggestions at this point at all, but at the same time we just have to be vigilant about what we're putting in our bodies and know what we're doing. And so I at 5 months after I started using the Shaklee supplements, I stopped taking all 5 of the medications that I was on for anxiety, antidepressant, blood pressure caused from ADHD medication, and I learned over the last couple of years that if I take good care of myself and love myself and treat my body the way it needs to be treated and deserves to be treated, that I don't need all of those medications. I can give myself the vitamins and supplements that I need. I do maintain one antidepressant, which for a lot of people would not be useful, but for some people have to have that one little extra thing that not everybody can do it the same way. But I can say that I have gone from 5 prescriptions to 1, and that's pretty powerful.
Yeah, it's excellent. Exactly. I love that you're making that point, Jennifer, because we don't want anyone to think that we are opposed to all medications. Medications serve a very important role, and we're grateful for them. What I think the difference between medical approaches to health in general and the holistic is that generally the medical approach is to diagnose a condition and then treat it with a medication. The holistic people, when they diagnose a condition, their question is, what's the cause? And so what and you know what, you've only been doing this 2 years, and not all the products over that 2-year period. So it takes time for us to heal the body. It takes time to change the way we eat. I mean, that I always tell people that taking the vitamins is the easy part. Changing our diet is the tricky one. So tell us a little bit. We're going to talk about each of these products individually, but do you want to just kind of do a fast overview of the ones that you took initially and
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Well, one of the things that, and it's listed first on the slide, is the Shaklee 180 smoothies. One of the things that I learned about myself early on related to depression was how much it had to do with my blood sugar. And so, and I actually was diagnosed probably in my mid-20s with oh, help me, Barb, low blood sugar, hypoglycemia.
Hypoglycemia.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And so one of the things I noticed immediately was drinking one of those protein shakes every morning kept my blood sugar steady throughout the day. And I can tell a difference even now if I don't drink one of the shakes, and either I don't have anything or I pick at something especially sweet, with high sugar, that by the middle of the day I'm feeling down in the dumps, and and I look back over the day and say, well, Jennifer, hello, you missed your protein shake this morning. So that was one, and then the Vitalizer strip is just that was just a miracle for me to be able to have one little strip that I can peel the back off, pop them in, have a chug of some water and be done and move on through the day was just really helpful to me to make sure I got all of the vitamins and minerals that my body was needing. And then for me, extra, just to keep myself stable, was to take extra Omega Guard, which, as Katie mentioned earlier, is really good with helping reduce inflammation in our bodies. So I actually take 2 extra Omega Guard on top of the Vitalizer strip, and then as well the Osteo Matrix, which Barb and I talked about today, was so important for sleep disturbances, which people with depression and anxiety really struggle with a lot of the time. So I take a couple of extra of those, and have just recently, not far past, up that to 4 a day instead of 2 a day, an additional to my Vitalizer, because Barbara has recommended that it may help even more with my sleep habits. And then also recently I've added the B complex. That's been probably in the last 6 or 8 months, is the B complex. And I can tell you, if I am feeling those feelings like Katie was talking about earlier of high anxiety and that fight or flight response where you just your muscles get tense and you're rapid.
Jennifer?
If I take, yes, ma'am?
You just popped out there for a minute. So, okay, you're back.
Sorry.
That's all right.
Oh,
Good.
okay. I was just saying that that Katie had mentioned the anxiety and talking about the fight or flight response and how our bodies get tense and tight and our heart rate speeds up and our breathing, it gets more rapid. I have struggled with a little bit of that myself, and I notice with the B complex that if I start to feel that way and I go ahead and just take 2 or 3 of those B complex, within 10 or 15 minutes I can feel everything relax inside my body. That the stress relief complex is amazing, like Katie mentioned earlier, and then I take extra vitamin D, especially during the winter.
Excellent. Very good. Okay, well, let's take a look at these then. Here's kind of the collection that Katie and Jennifer mentioned. I put in a couple of extra ones here to tell you about. And so let's just look at each of them now individually and give you an idea about what they do, how they work. And Jen and Katie, I'm going to let you talk about B complex since that's at the top of both of your lists. Katie, you want to get started?
Sure. I love B complex. It's so important for us because B complex, our B vitamins, are depleted from our body so quickly. Stress depletes it, sugar, refined carbs, alcohol, caffeine, various different medications. And so a lot of us are very low. And it's water soluble, so it has to be replenished daily. And a lot of times we need extra. I just recently increased mine to even adding in extra even more, and it's helped even more with energy, and especially when there's been very little sunshine. But it's also in dark green vegetables and in whole grains. But it's very, very, very important for our brain and our nervous system. It's really good, too, for children and for kids as they're in school and as they're trying to learn and focus and have attention, because it's important for their brains. And it also helps to prevent sugar cravings. So it converts our food to energy, and that's why it's known to help with energy, but it also helps regulate our blood sugar, which I love what Jennifer said, and that's so true for me too with the proteins. I notice a big difference when I have a meal like the 180 versus when I have a meal that's just strictly all carbs or very little protein. I know that it really helps stabilize my blood sugar. And as Barb always likes to say, turns every mother into Mother Teresa. The great thing about this, especially for women who are looking to conceive, is that the folic acid is in the coating, which helps with the absorption of that, which is very important because folic acid is very difficult to absorb. So this is also very important for women to take before they get pregnant.
Excellent. Thanks, Katie. Hannah, let's go to you, and maybe you could walk us through a couple of the additional products here.
Well, it is exciting to see the kinds of results that people do receive from Mood Lift, which is featured especially the main ingredient being St. John's wort and inositol. And incidentally, inositol is very rich in lecithin, and that might be why also many people use lecithin for depression as well, we've discovered. do very well with that. And when you look at the different things that this can help with, everything from moderate depression to irritability, insomnia, loss of pleasure, mild anxiety, it goes on to fatigue, sleep disorders, migraines, nerve pain, everything that Katie and Jennifer described so well today. And to know that inositol, which is along with that St. John's wort, it's a key building block in the transmission of those nerve signals. So it tends to be low in people with melancholy. So you can probably see why that relationship and why that works so well. And then let's talk a little bit about stress relief.
Oh, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
Like that, please.
Got it? Yep. Click.
Here we go. Okay. One of the things that happens when our body is very stressed, our adrenals have to work very, very hard. And what happens as a result of that, our cortisol levels start to go much higher. And that's really important to be able to blunt that production, because one of the things when cortisol gets too high, that's what can cause that sudden heart attack that you hear about as well. And the other thing is a lot of people with that weight right around their belly and up right under the breast line, a lot of that comes from cortisol being too high. So in this product, there are 2 amino acids, theanine and L-tyrosine, and 2 herbs, ashwagandha and beta-sitosterol. And those all work together to help relax the body and promote alertness at the same time. A lot of people tell me that when they go on things like Prozac, they feel like they're zombies. And one of the beauties of mood lift and stress relief is that doesn't happen at all. They still feel very alert. At the same time, they're getting the results. And by the way, the ashwagandha, which is from a mushroom, helps support that whole system. And Barb, you want to tell us more about what sunlight does?
Sure. Well, this is the time of year when, of course, we're at our shortest days. And so understand that takes a toll on our brains and our energy levels, because our pineal gland, one of the glands in your head that then in turn kind of stimulates everything else, it is activated by light. And so vitamin D deficiencies are often linked to depression and even chronic fatigue. And vitamin D in the adrenal glands helps produce hormones that affect mood and energy. So adrenals start pumping a lot more of those hormones, and then you lead to adrenal exhaustion, and people are deader than doornails. So this is why vitamin D is so important, and it does a gazillion things in the body. It's good for your heart, good for your brain, good for your immune system. It does a lot of cancer prevention. Important, of course, for your bones and your teeth and your sleep and all of that. But it also is very important for your brain and for moods and depression. Go ahead.
Right, and then, of course, Optiflora, one of the beauties of this product is that what happens from everything from taking antibiotics or ill health, for whatever reason, our decrease in our healthy bacteria allows yeast to be overgrowing in the intestines. And that can cause depression and anxiety and mood swings and even difficulty concentrating. And remember that 70 to 80% of your immune system is in the gut. Well, those neurotransmitters, I think, Barb, you were the one that talked about those earlier. Those conduct the nerve impulses even in the lining of the gut. So if you are having this process going on, doesn't it make sense if you're replacing that healthy bacteria? That's going to help counteract the yeast and any other issues. And one of the beauties of our Optiflora is this has a special triple encapsulation process that keeps our bacteria alive. And amazes me every time I think of the story about a doctor for infectious disease who said he's investigated and gone through so many of the probiotics in the market, and literally there's nothing alive in any of them. So we're so proud of the fact that we can guarantee those 500 million healthy, live-friendly bacteria. So they completely survive the stomach acid. They're released at the right spot in the intestines, really help to boost the immune system and help counteract the yeast, which then helps counteract depression as well. So
Very
you can
good.
see the tie in there. Then, of course, Omega Guard, and I love how Katie and Jennifer brought this up a great deal about the decrease in the inflammation in the body, but look at all the other wonderful things it does. And, of course, we even know that when a woman is pregnant, especially in her second trimester, it's very important to take extra Omega Guard because it works on brain development. So again, you can see the correlation there. So again, nice, safe, healthy process the way Shaklee prepares that. And Katie?
Katie and Jennifer, I thought you might want to talk about protein a little bit more. Jen, you want to talk about your favorite ones here? Oh, did I? They self-mute when they've got children in the house. It's okay, Katie.
Okay, there. Is that better?
Oh, there you go. Yeah, now we can hear you. Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So tell us a little bit about do you use all the different proteins and
Yes. Well, my family does, certainly. I stick to the Shaklee 180. And my favorite is vanilla. And I'm just a plain Jane girl, so just pour some milk and some vanilla protein powder, and I'm good to go. But my children all enjoy the vitalizing protein powder, which is not the 180, but yeah,
that's nice.
Yep, that's right. Yep, that's the one. My son particularly likes the chocolate, and then my other two like the chocolate and the and the strawberry. And then I use the energizing soy protein as well to add to things that I bake, to things that I cook. It's just a great way, especially if you're kind of trying to stick to a low carb and high protein habit or diet. You can add that into anything, and you can even add it into your shakes. And I will tell you that my husband is one of them, but several friends that are into muscle building and really like to do their workouts, and they want to make sure that the protein to carb ratio is exactly what they need it to be or want it to be. And so what they will do is add the soy protein to their shake to make the ratio exactly the way that they want it to be.
Very nice. And Katie, do you make the peanut butter fudge for your kids?
Yes, they last very long. But if you just put 1 cup of peanut butter, 1 cup of the energizing soy protein, you could use any of the protein, but that's one example of the protein that you can use for the recipe. And then of 1/3 of a cup of honey. You can even add in chia seeds or flax seeds or sunflower seeds, and you just roll them into a ball, stick them in the fridge, and they are a wonderful treat and wonderful snack. And the great thing is it's got a lot of protein, so it's just satisfying.
And not just for kids. They're really yummy. That's very good. Go ahead.
I was just going to mention, too, for people who can't have peanut butter, but they can have almond butter or sun butter, you can substitute that
easily.
That makes a great difference, yes.
And Hannah, we have one of the newest products now that has been added to the Shaklee line, which is really designed for improving memory and focus. But a number of people reported that they really noticed a lifting of moods with it. But just you want to tell us a little bit about MindWork? It's quite a remarkable product.
Well, it is. It's very exciting. And 2 of the main ingredients are decaffeinated guarana extract as well as the special Chardonnay grapeseed extract. And we can spend an hour on this product, and of course we're not going to tonight, but it is very exciting because not only are people getting that memory and focus and reaction time so much improved, but we are really finding report after report of people that are having great results from anxiety and depression. And I just in this last few months, the product's been out. We are getting this from countless people, anywhere from people who had very mild, like I think it was Jennifer that said she never really used medication. However, we're finding people like that, but also people who are on medication for this getting great results too. So it makes sense. I guess that's great proof how well it is working on the brain if we're seeing those kinds of results.
Well, one of the things it does is one of these ingredients helps improve the connectivity between the neurons in the brain.
Right.
And the other one improves circulation, dramatically improves circulation to bring nutrients up to the brain cells and the nerve cells and to carry toxins away. So it's a fabulous product.
Right. And I'm going to say, if it makes new neural connections, which is one of the things that they have told us about, what's very exciting about that, too, is that Dr. Daggy has actually made the statement that it can rebuild brain the brain.
Mm.
So people who have had even brain damage, I'm eager to see if they're even going to see some results because of that.
Lots of wonderful new things. So both Katie and Jennifer mentioned one of the Shaklee calcium products, Osteomatrix.
Right.
So tell us a little bit about why that product is so effective. And people think that calcium is primarily for the bones, but it's actually very important for nerves and muscles. Sure, go ahead.
Certainly is. In fact, way before we ever talked about it for depression, from the time we got into Shaklee, one of the things that we heard about was take your calcium at bedtime because it's a natural muscle relaxant. That's why people used to use warm milk before bedtime. Of course, now with pasteurization, we don't get that calcium out of the milk like we used to. But it is great to realize that it does help you to relax so that you will have a more sound sleep. And of course, most people, if we sleep better, we're going to also have a better mood during the day as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's neat that while it's working for bones and teeth, we're also getting the great results. And of course, definitely for leg cramps and things like that too. Amazing results.
Mm-hmm. Jennifer, we discovered something interesting today when we were talking about calcium and stomach acids. You want to share that?
Sure. I think one of the things I mentioned to you earlier was just that when I have had issues with some acid reflux, that I could take some of the chewable calcium magnesium, and it did the same thing as taking a couple of Tums, but way better for you. And then, Barb, I think there was something else that we talked about, and it's
when you had the gastric bypass surgery, and it reduced the amount of stomach acid, and so she had been taking Osteomatrix before bed, which Hannah just mentioned, and we've recommended for years.
Barb, I had been taking it in the morning, and you suggested that I start taking it at bedtime.
At dinner, though, because then when we realized you had had gastric bypass surgery, is that you need to have a certain amount of stomach acid to absorb calcium, and so then we realized she had had gastric bypass surgery. How long ago was that? That was a while.
It's been 5 years.
Yeah, 5 years.
Wow.
And so that would reduce the amount of stomach, and we have less stomach acid as we age anyway. But anyway, so she's our guinea pig now on this one for calcium. So, and that brings us to our last product, and that is one that kind of ties in a lot of the nutrients that Katie and Jennifer talked about. So, Hannah, why don't you just share this last one with us?
Well, both of the ladies tonight gave such great testimonies to the Vitalizer because this is a great way, something simple, easy, and convenient to get 80 different nutrients that address 20 different health issues. And we've talked tonight about the complex. We've talked tonight about the omega-3s. We've talked about the probiotic and all of the help that those are beneficial for depression and anxiety. And even though you may need to take a couple extra, like I think it was Jennifer that mentioned extra omegas, this still gives you the greatest foundation for all of those nutrients that you need. So a great way of being able to get them, and again, not only simple, easy, and convenient, but something that addresses, gives us a whole foundation throughout our spectrum of nutrients.
This is Jennifer. I just want to piggyback what you're saying right now. I do take extra of the omega, the vitamin D, the B complex, the osteomatrix,
right.
And the biggest reason I do that is because of the gastric bypass and the malabsorption that comes along with it. But really, if I had not had that surgery and had a stomach that absorbed all of the vitamins and minerals, I probably wouldn't have to take all of the extra that I do. That Vitalizer really is a one-stop shop, or one-stop shop.
Oh, that's great.
That's right. One-stop shop.
Terrific program.
Very good. And
Thank
also
you.
something for those of you who may not be using Shaklee products yet, this is also, there's a number of ways that we allow people to become members, and that gives them a 15% discount right away. And when you purchase a Vitalizer, you get the membership free forever. So it's also a very nice way to help people get a free membership. So there's our collection of products that we've talked about today to help everybody have a happy mood and mind and stress-free life. B Complex, the Mood Lift from St. John's Wort, the Vitamin D3, Omega Guard, Stress Relief Complex, Optiflora MindWorks, and Vitalized Protein. So thanks for joining us tonight. Joe, are there any questions that we need to address before
Let's see. That was an excellent presentation, ladies. You covered, I was amazed, the continuum, the scope of all of the issues around anxiety and depression and moods that you covered. That was great.
Good, thanks.
How many vitamin Ds?
Of which one? Vitamin
D is in dog.
Oh, vitamin D. D is in dog. Okay. I know. It sounds like B and E and G and F.
Yeah.
Okay. So the vitamin D, the medical people will tell you when you have a vitamin D blood test that they like you over 35. But all the authorities say at least 50, and 70 is even better. And so what's interesting about that Shaklee vitamin D, in fact, one of the other responses I got for those of you on the pre-call when I was asking people about stories was a woman who actually lives in Florida, Amber Robinson, and she said, you know, I was put on vitamin D products, you know, vitamin D, before I began using Shaklee products, and my vitamin D level never budged. And she said, I went on that Shaklee vitamin D, which, by the way, is very inexpensive. It's barely even $8. And she said, my vitamin D level for the first time went up to these normal levels. So ideally, just aim for to be at least over 50. So depending on where you live as to how many you need to take, all of us live in the winter time now. Most of us, if it's cool, are not sitting in the sun anyway. And so you want to take at least another 1,000 of the international units, but the further north you live, then the more vitamin D you want to take. So in the wintertime, I tend to take 2 or 3 tablets a day. And I remember when the vitamin D came out, I started taking, you know, probably 1 a day. But then when the winter set in, I'd only been taking it, I think, about 6-7 months when I had my a blood test taken, and my vitamin D level was 74. And so awesome. So it just showed how quickly that product is well absorbed. I mean, I can't tell you how many people have been putting these mega levels of vitamin D, but and barely have their vitamin D levels move. So that's a wonderful product and very well absorbed.
Someone says they found that MindWorks really helps with moods as well. Okay, I guess this person specifically wanted to know how many vitamin D Jennifer takes.
Okay, Jen?
I take 2 in addition to the Vitalizer strip.
Great.
Okay, good.
And I have had my blood work done, and my vitamin D is perfectly normal.
Good.
Good, great.
Is lecithin helpful for anxiety?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, years ago, before we had MindWorks, before we had Mood Lift, we used a lot of lecithin, and a lot of people got great results.
What would you recommend for bipolar?
Well, you know, these are not products that we prescribe for any specific condition. They are all nutrients that are essential for the brain and the nervous system. So it's not like there's a prescription for Alzheimer's and a prescription for Parkinson's and a prescription for bipolar. All we know is that there is a collection of products that is very important for a healthy, for healthy brain cells and healthy nerves. And so all we can do is feed the body the nutrients that we know they need and let the body pick and choose. And many times, as you can hear from our stories, people start to experience better health. So probably the very same things that we just talked about today.
And you start, I think, there, and or if they're not on anything at all, probably just the healthy foundations to get a good base.
Good
May
starting
I speak
point.
to that?
Sure.
As well, I thank you to whoever asked that question. That's a really, really good question. And this is Jennifer. Again, I just want to say to whomever asked that question, number one, a great nutritional base and supplementation is imperative and important. You need to make sure that you're getting all of those essential vitamins and minerals that your body needs, and Shockley is the best possible way to do that, and I believe that with all of my heart. The second thing that I think is very important to remember is that there really needs to be, and Barb mentioned this earlier in the webinar, a psychologist or a counselor, somebody involved that can help you work through whatever it is that you're going through and whatever issues you're having, because it's not all in a. That's when you're dealing with severe mental illness. It's not always a one-stop shop.
Yeah, right. Erin, you're asking about if you only could choose one for somebody who was having panic attacks. I will tell you that's a difficult question, because panic attacks are the anxiety part, right? So they're, your stress hormones are being released and your heart's being speeded up and your breathing speeded up and so forth. I will tell you, for me, I always go to the basic nutrients that you need for your brain and your nerves. And so I tend to go to B complex. I tend to go, to the Vitalizer strip. Mood lift is great, but people with a panic attack aren't having depression. They're having a panic attack. So stress relief probably would be excellent because it blunts cortisol production. But really, if you're still treating then the symptom, of the spiked cortisol production, and what you want to do is go back and heal the whole system and get healthier cells throughout the nerves and the brain. So Vitalizer and stress relief would be my first choices.
No, here, can you reiterate what makes our vitamin D better?
Absorption. That's what Shackley is brilliant at, is absorption. And so, 5,000 units is nothing when some of the medical people prescribe 50,000 units, right, and they do it in a week. And I've had people on that and not have their vitamin D levels go up anywhere near as fast as we have with the vitamin D. It's got to be in a form and in levels that your body absorbs. And it's
quick. I'm sorry.
It's so inexpensive that you can easily take 3 or 4 or 5 little teeny tiny tablets in a day. But all I can tell you is people will over and over will tell you how well absorbed it is.
Yeah, actually we have a. Go ahead, Katie.
There's also 600 I use in the Osteomatrix. So that's a great thing to add too, and you're also getting a little bit of vitamin D with that as well.
Right. We have a couple, a man and a wife, who tested. Their D levels were 18 and 19. Hers was actually the 18.
Oh my goodness.
So she followed the doctor's advice and went on a 50,000 unit prescription. And he just took 2 Vitaly and our D3, and his came up way more than hers.
Yeah. Heard that before.
Yeah.
Very good. Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. Thanks for joining us tonight. And Joe, do we have our schedule of, next week, because this is the time of year that a lot of people are starting new enterprises. We're going to be talking about the power of the profession, with a focus on the power of our profession for moms. And then in February, Gary Burke will be joining us on February 2nd and share his story and talk about some of the benefits of home businesses. So thanks, everyone, for joining us.
Thank you.
We'll see you next week.
Thank you,
Jennifer, and thank you,
yes,
Hannah, and thank you, Katie and Joe. See you all
Great
next
job,
week.
you too. Thank you.
Bye. Bye.